Simple 10x cryptos. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil and keep technical analysis short and sweet. Now, everybody's freaking out because Bitcoin doesn't look like it's doing much, but the rest of the cryptocurrencies are dropping 10, 20%, which is typical to have a healthy market. So when we were looking at Bitcoin the other day, I was telling you that we may have had this drop. Judging by this area right here, these blue bars, we could see a similar pattern form out. So we see that we had that drop, which would be right around this area. We had the pump up and then a little bit of consolidation pushing downwards. However, looking at the CM Guppy, we are staying over these blue lines. The 200 EMA is starting to curve upwards, and soon enough, we'll start seeing Bitcoin pump up towards around $150 is my guess. I mean, everything's speculation, but looking at Bitcoin, we see that it's in consolidation, so we can take this information and we can look at something else. I will do a XRP, XLM, and a few others on another video because these videos keep getting longer and longer. But looking at Doge, look at the volume, just looking at the volume alone. We don't have any RSI in here because for some reason my chart doubles down RSI until I remove CM Guppy. And then I put it back in RSI, relative strength index. Now I got 2, no clue why, probably because I didn't pay for the platform. But then we start putting CM Guppy back in there. So using this technical indicator, we see that the CM Guppy, it's getting real tight. There's a lot of pressure starting to build up, judging by the volume that is picking up here. So we see that the candles are getting a lot higher. The RSI is actually retracing back into the buy zone area. It was way overbought here. As you can see, looking at the actual chart, that it was topping out right whenever it was being overbought in the RSI, and then it started to curve back in to get us near that 50% for the RSI. Dogecoin is now underneath 24 cents. We are stating that once it broke the 21 cent, it was going to be pushing up to the 24 cent, which clearly happened. Now it is testing this area as support. This is the fair value gap where we are starting to build a lot more pressure. And a lot of people want to sell off and try and buy at a lower price. That would not be a good option for a lot of the cryptocurrencies, as this is the spring that is going to start the continuation before the major increase in profit. You could also build a trend line from here going up, and that's exactly what we want to be seeing the support off of. This is on the daily, and we see that it is above the 200 EMA now. Previously, we pushed above the 200 EMA, could not hold it. Here is the second chance, and if we can hold this as support, we are going to see a continuation upwards for Dogecoin. Moving on over to Render. I personally bailed on my Render position and bought into more quant. Render is getting rejected by that 200 EMA. However, all we really need to do is close and hold above the 200 EMA right here, which is around 4.44, before we can see that push back up to 5.5 and then 7.3. There are a lot of other coins out there that can get you a lot more potential profit, so keep that in mind as Render volume is picking up. We just really need to see it close above that 200 EMA. Moving on over to Graph. Graph had a very nice push upwards, also got rejected by the 200 EMA here, 45% increase, and we were waiting for it to break this black downward trend line, which when it did, we saw that it pushed up towards that 200 EMA. We're looking for this area for it to break before entering in a bigger position. It did not break and hold that. However, this as well, volume is increasing exponentially. It is testing this downward trend line as support, and when we see that support, we can clearly see that it's going to be pushing back up over that 200 EMA, pushing up towards the 20 cents. BNT and DNT, two that I've been talking about for a long time. Our entry was here at roughly 36 cents, and we had that major pump up towards 76 cents. With a rejection, testing that 200 EMA, using the 200 EMA as support, and then pushing it back up exactly where we had predicted, around the 80 cent mark, the dotted red line, the fair value gap, and we got a little bit of rejection. We are now looking for a little bit more support as long as we're staying above this green on the CM guppy, it's looking more healthy. Overall, we could see a little bit more retracement, but do not sell your BNT as it does have a very high price point from where we are currently sitting at. This has a very, very long way to go. If you have money in BNT, or if you don't have money in BNT, it is filling out its inverse head and shoulders here, and we pretty much just need to push up, get over this 83 cent mark, and then we'll start seeing exponential increase to $1.55 and beyond for BNT. Definitely make sure you're doing your entry correctly, as we may have a little bit more of a pullback, a little bit of consolidation, and that 200 EMA getting real nice and tight, getting some pressure on BNT. Moving over to DNT. DNT is still getting rejected by that 200 EMA. However, we are over this black downward trend line. We are getting support off this black upward trend line. So as long as we hold above that, we are in the clear for this next potential push upwards towards 0.05 cents from 0.02. Bitcoin in its consolidation phase tends to move the market a lot more than it moves itself. So we see that Bitcoin had that consolidation, a major pump, had pump with the rest of the cryptos, then a quick drop down, and now it is trying to get a little bit lower than this wick off at 117. However, I believe we are testing some support on this downward trend line. Similar to this right here, we could circle that in this, ghost invisible area that we have seen happen in the past. I expect to see a little bit more consolidation for maybe a couple days, and then a push upwards once everybody starts selling out, thinking that a 20% loss is devastating. They are really going to miss out on a major opportunity. And then moving on to QNT. QNT, a lot of people, they expected to push a lot higher than it did. However, keeping in mind, it pushed all the way down here to around $90 before getting that support off that 200 EMA. For those who are in at this point around 120, 124, you could have had a scalp trade and sell off here at 133. And then you could have had a re-entry here at 118. If you're just now figuring out the markets, you start to realize that when you are in profit, you sometimes just want to take that profit and then have a re-entry at a lower price. Maybe you made a couple $100, maybe you made a couple grand, and then you watched it just disappear within 2 days. So that is kind of what a scalp trade would be, where you see it push up, you see the volume picking up, you think everything's going to go to the moon, and then there's people who are selling off right here because they made substantial amount of money, and then it pushes the market right back down into this area, which is the healthy area to keep the market moving upwards. You can't move up in a straight line without reversals and consolidation. So looking at the RSI, the CM guppy, we see that we pushed out of this range here in the RSI, and that was the exact point and exact day whenever it started to top out. And so people wanted to push that back into the 50 area on the RSI, which we are currently sitting at. So some people say, oh, I want to sell now, even at a loss, get out. That would be an unwise decision, as this is the spring that is going to kick off the market. We have that major pullback. I say major, but it's only really 13%. Seems astronomical, but is pennies on what could potentially be. Moving up to 148 is 10%, the 15%, 156. We are expecting it to be going to at least 171 before a little consolidation, so that's another 27% increase. However, if we are trapped in at this lower price range, say around 120, that is around a 43% increase. So do not be worried about that little bit of a decrease. It is testing that support in this area before making that major pump. We've seen hundreds of percent increase in crypto within a few days, weeks pushing up thousands percent. So this little bit of pullback is actually very necessary to keep that 200 EMA right here, lining up with this black upward trend line, to get that support, get that pressure, and start pushing QNT to a new all-time high. We may see a little resistance at this 171 as this is the previous high. However, beyond that, it has a very long way to go. You see maybe a little bit of rejection here at 225 with an absolute destruction back down to $91 and below before ultimately taking off. But more than likely, we're going to start seeing this push up consolidation around 171 and then a continuation up to 280. And if you're looking at that price increase from around entry for some of the people who have been watching, that's 128% increase. If you were worried about, a $7,000 deduction right here, which is a 23% decrease, 128% increase is substantial gains that are here to be coming very, very soon. Volume is picking up. RSI is getting very healthy and stable. 200 EMA is starting to curve upwards, causing that pressure, moving the entire market upwards. So just hold on, hodl. You will see 10x here in the upcoming months. If not, these next couple of days, you're going to start seeing some pretty quick momentum pushing the rest of the market upwards, even with this slight retrace. That's it for this video. Good luck. Have fun with it. All references in the links below. Mexi, Grass is doing their airdrop next month. If you want free money, join Grass with that reference link. And yeah, good luck. Have fun with it. See you on the next one.